Hello and welcome to episode 4 of our new football ground review series, Review the 92. Each week, myself and a co-host, usually Tom, are talking through one of the grounds we visited together in our attempt to do the 92, which was cruelly halted a couple of weeks ago, but we will get back to it one day. If you have missed any of the first 3 episodes, please do catch up in the eye above. Thank you for those that have supported so far. We hope you continue to enjoy it. And of course, as we go along, if you've been to any of these grounds, let us know down in the comments your opinions of them too. Again, quick disclaimer, we are going to offend people because when you're talking about your ground, you're going to have a fond opinion of it. I understand that. And again, we'll try and be fair when we get to ours as well. But thank you so much for watching so far. If you are looking forward to it, put a thumbs up on it. And at this point, I'll introduce my co-host, Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hi, how's it going?
Right. Today, as we move into the 4th one, we continue through the alphabet of grounds we visited together. And that means we are moving on to another old school ground in Ewood Park, Blackburn Rovers home. So this one's going to be a bit of an interesting one. There's going to be a few mitigating circumstances again. And of course, we'll be ranking on the same 4 usual key areas as we have all the other episodes. So we'll have atmosphere, location, value for money and character. So we visited just at the start of this season, actually, the end of September, to watch Blackburn 1, Luton 2. Which was a lovely day out for us. And I think our first away win, a big away win that we went to that season because we missed the Barnsley one. So talk to me about the day. What's the first things you remember? In fact, don't do that because I've forgotten to give you the stats. So the ground itself was built and opened in 1882, one of the oldest, in fact, the oldest we've had in this series so far. And Blackburn have, of course, been there for the majority of that time. From 1890 onwards, they have been permanent residents. The capacity of the stadium is 31,367 and it is the classic 4-stand stadium that we like so much. So it's going to have a lot of positives for us in that sense. But Tom, you can now tell me about the day.
Just a quick question. Do you know what happened in those 8 years between the building of it and Blackburn Rovers moving in? I've put you on the spot with that one. There's a trivia question. Someone can leave in the comments.
Oh, in fact, I can tell you. It's staged in the 80s. So Blackburn were there in 1882. And then during the rest of the 1880s, it staged football, athletics and some form of greyhound racing, which it specifies was not oval ground racing. But they moved back there in 1890.
That's important to clarify.
So. But yes, on to the day. Tell me about it. What did you remember?
So, as you said, it was one of the first away games with Luton in the Championship back after a decade, was it? Out of the Championship? Over a decade.
3rd game, I think, we went to that season, away from home.
So, yeah.
Early on.
Still relatively early on.
Absolutely.
And yeah, as you said, it was a big away win, and I think Luton have had very few since then, haven't they? So it felt like a momentous occasion at the time. It was obviously an ex-Premier League team. There are so many in the Championship. There are ex-Premier League clubs, of course. Yeah. So you said it's a proper ground, and it felt like a smash and grab, wasn't it? Great to take 3 points away from home because you don't really, as a club battling for survival. I know I realise we're talking from a very Luton Town perspective here, but we knew the odds were against us from the start of the season, and to get 3 points away from home on the board early on really felt like a big achievement for the club, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was probably the first massive away day we had because obviously we went to Cardiff before, which is not far along in this series, which was bitter disappointment, and QPR, which was bizarre, which we'll get onto when we get to that. But Blackburn was a proper backs to the wall performance, and it was one of the moments where you thought we might actually be able to stay up this season.
Again, we'll get to it, but Kenilworth Road is a bit of a fortress, or it has been over the years for Luton. So you're hoping they're going to get obviously most of their points to stay up at home. Anything you need on the road, as always, is a bonus, isn't it? So you have to nick 3 points. Was it 2 set pieces? 2 headers, was it?
I don't remember the first one so much. I remember the second one definitely was. It was Matty Pearson. Because obviously that made a big thing because he came through the Blackburn Youth Academy and got released and then scored the winner against them. But I can't remember the Collins goal. I can't remember what it was.
No, you're just going into away games in the Championship against such quality teams. You'd take a point every time, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah.
You don't expect to win, especially. Yeah. Again, you got the sense you're going to an ex-Premier League club. Throughout when we were kids, Blackburn were an established Premier League team with legends like Tugai, and a bit later on Rocky Santa Cruz, just off the top of my head.
I thought you were going to say Robbie Savage.
Robbie Savage. Brad Friedel, that's some big names, aren't they? They're proper clubs. Yeah. So yeah, it was just good to go with Luton Town to these sort of teams, established, huge teams.
Couldn't agree more. But I guess we better put our Luton Town hats aside and talk about Ewood Park itself now. So, as we've mentioned before, we always go on public transport. So that weekend we actually went from Manchester rather than your current home in Leeds. So a very easy trip for us, to be honest.
Yeah, direct that wasn't it? Was it just Victoria? Probably about half an hour, 40 minutes off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
it wasn't far.
No.
And then obviously the main other thing is that we've looked this up since, and neither of us can quite believe that it was a half an hour walk because neither of us remember complaining about it, and normally I would. So it can't have been a bad walk.
No. I think we've both got quite good memories, and the fact it was only in September, and we can't actually remember the walk between the train station and the ground. It's quite concerning, but also suggests it wasn't too arduous. Maybe it was quite maybe relatively straightforward.
Yeah, I'm remembering little bits of it. I remember going over it that we were by a river at some point, and I do remember having to make a couple of turns around some streets with some weird shops on. But otherwise, it wasn't a bad walk. I don't remember there being any big hills, and of course, anyone who's watched this before will already know that that is a tick in my book.
We don't like that.
For itself, the grounds, obviously, I know the main thing for you before we get onto the individual aspects was before outside it. So tell me about your favourite part of the day.
Yeah, I really do talk about this, don't I? I just thought the match day experience they provided for the fans before the game was top class. Like they had the lunchtime kickoff on a screen on the side of one of the stands, a bit of an area where you could buy a drink, just people milling about, catching up with their friends before they go in the ground. Just had like a really laid back, not hostile at all. Could get a drink and just enjoy the early kickoff before you go and watch the Blackburn game, which I really liked, and I think I'd want to see more of throughout the Football League.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, the main thing for me was we've mentioned it so many times when we've been on our travels is heavy policing and segregating fans and things like that. And we were there. None of the fans were separated. They were all outside the stadium watching this big screen, and it was no trouble at all. Everyone was getting on fine, and it actually people behaved like adults because they were given the opportunity to, and that was the nicest thing to see for me. It's something I wish more clubs would do.
Yeah, I think it is easy to criticise and lay into the police, but often I do think at football games, their presence can kind of encourage people if they're that way inclined to act out and have
Gives
a
them an
scrap.
audience, doesn't it?
Gives them like, okay, if you're going to be here, I'm going to act up, I'm going to play up, and that, I just yeah. And you might say, well, of course, like Blackburn, Luton, so far apart, why would there be any trouble? No, there's no rivalry there at all. But yeah, you're right. Treat them as adults, like respect them, and if we act properly, then there'll be no trouble, and there wasn't.
That game was the perfect proof of it. I mean, in terms of the stadium itself, I remember obviously the stand we were in was quite an old-fashioned stand. We were near the back of the top tier. It was a nice vantage point. I always like sitting at the back of stands. It's a cracking view, and I know it Luton winning probably hampered it a little bit for me or changed that expectation, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, I do remember being quite high up. I think all Luton fans were in the top half, weren't they? There was
Yeah, it was the top tier.
nobody in the bottom half. So yeah, we're quite high up. I think we were quite far to the right, so that
I was in
our
last
right
seat.
hand. Yeah, you were, weren't you? So the right hand, that stand on our right was kind of cut off, so we could only really see two stands, really, couldn't we?
But even that stand on the right, we probably missed the oldest fashioned one. It was a really nice old. But again, it was a four corners. You could see what was in the town city behind it, which is always one of my favourite things to be able to say. So
yeah, you said that about St Andrews, didn't you?
Yeah.
I think at half time I did to get a better picture. I changed my. I walked along a bit and I did get a view of the three stands. I thought, oh yeah, I do like that kind of like the stand running alongside the pitch.
Spot on. And
is that the oldest one? Is it? Do you know?
I have no idea.
No, you're on the spot. Yeah, it did look like an old stand, and as you said, it's 1882. So if there's no major renovations over the years, then
it's going to be old school.
It's going to be old school, yeah.
So I guess we better move on to our main four areas, and this is where we have to start to talk about mitigating circumstances, dodgy owners, which I'm sure will come up in a few grounds and things like that. But let's start with atmosphere, and this is probably the biggest one for that mention. So the ground wasn't particularly full. I don't think Ewood Park, possibly bar the odd cup game, has been particularly full for basically a decade since the Venkies came in, which is a bit of a shame because it was a classic old Premier League stadium, obviously one of the few clubs that have won the league. So I feel like we're going to have to mark it down. Again, Blackburn were losing. That's another circumstance you have to bear in mind. and they wouldn't have expected to be losing to Luton. But as much as I'd love to go and visit again when the Venkies have left and there's great owners in charge and they're delighted with how things are going, at the moment I can't base it on that, and I feel like I'm going to be harsh as a result.
Yeah, again, I can't say I remember Blackburn, but at the same time, I don't think Luton fans were in that great a voice, considering they were winning away from home for the first time in the Championship. Again, maybe off the top, I couldn't tell you how many Luton fans travelled up. A decent following, but maybe not
Just
sold
over
out.
1,000 by the looks of it, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely respectable. I'm not sure. Maybe I got it wrong a bit. Maybe they were.
It was because it's such a big stand, wasn't it? And we're in the top tier, so you can't get that. You weren't close to the pitch, you weren't close to the other stands. You were as far away
Yeah,
as you could be.
you're quite isolated, aren't you, up there? Um, yeah, the atmosphere. I don't recall it being rocking. So unfortunately, yeah, as you said, like bad owners, understandable people lose interest or boycott, or got perfectly good reasons for not going or not being interested. Not maybe that's a poor choice of word. Not definitely interested, obviously, when your club properly run. So that's your way of making your point. So it's understandable that the atmosphere is not great at Blackburn at the moment.
I'm going to let you go first in giving your rating out of 10 to see how bad I'm going to look when I give mine.
I'd just say it was average. I guess maybe a bit below. I'll give it a 5. I think.
So you're going to be more generous than me. I'm actually going to give it a 4, but that is based on the fact that I understand the reasons for it for Blackburn fans, and I will happily go back and reevaluate once the
Yeah.
owner situation's sorted and you've got a full rocking house again, because it is a brilliant ground and I'd happily go back again.
Just make that clear to any Blackburn fans watching. Yeah.
Please don't slag me off. I do understand the reasons. We move on to the second one, which is location. So we've mentioned it a bit already. Again, for you up north, easy transport links, decent walk, but no big hills. The location, I guess, of the ground as well probably does include the externals of the ground and what they were doing around there, which meant that we didn't have to go and fight to look for a pub or things like that as well. You have to take those things into account. So I'm quite happy with this one.
Yeah, as you said, we only travelled on the day from Manchester, so we were even though we were supporting Luton on the day, which you think, oh, that's a big journey you've made. We were staying in Manchester, so it was a relatively short journey, of course,
Yeah.
and we don't remember the walk, even though Google has told us it's half an hour. We don't remember it being particularly long, so convenient, straightforward, well connected. So shall I go first and give it a score? I'll go a 7.
Exactly what I was going to go for. I happily agree with that. And the experience outside the ground and not having to try and find, because I'm going to be honest here, most of my followers will probably know this. I'm not the type that's going to go into a rowdy pub before and start singing songs. I want a laid back leisure environment, and that allowed us to do it outside the ground. I didn't have to find a local pub. So big thumbs up for that for me. And being able to speak to Blackburn fans, see things like that was great as well. So no problems with that.
Just a little question for you.
Go on.
5 points. Who was the lunchtime kickoff we were watching before it? I've
It
got
was
Liverpool.
Liverpool won 1-0 somewhere. Can't remember where. Southampton,
Yeah.
maybe? I don't think that's right either.
Yeah, it was Liverpool though, wasn't it?
Might have been Sheffield United. Might have been when he dropped it for his hands, Henderson.
Oh, you might. Yeah, that rings a
Might
bell.
be that one. But I think we'd missed the goal. So either way, it doesn't matter.
No.
Moving on, we're going to go to value for money. So do you remember the ticket price? And I'll tell you if not.
I'm not good with that. I always rely on you for that. Go on.
As I purchased them all, £25. About average for this
Yeah.
season, probably.
In my head, when I'm working this out, I always I work out how much would I normally pay for an Arsenal ticket in comparison. Like, an Arsenal rightly get a bad time and get a lot of bad press about what they charge their fans. But then if I think and you're charging not far off what they charge for some of their games, I'm thinking that doesn't look great on you. So £25 does sound quite steep, doesn't it? So I guess I'd want it near 20. I think 20 is what I'd expect to pay. Maybe I'm being a bit tight.
Yeah, I think you are.
20 is plenty, as they say. So
Well,
I'll give it a 6 for value for money.
so I'll give it a 6, but my description won't be quite so harsh because 25 quid for a championship game. Again, 20 is plenty, but we've got to base it on what it's on at the moment. And there have been worse grounds that we have paid more money for, and quite a few of them. In fact, do you know what? I'm going to give it a 7. Do you know what? I'm happy. 25 quid. It wasn't bad. It was a great stadium. if it had been a normal Blackburn ground, rocking full house, it would be amazing. But I think that's probably skewing our thoughts a little bit as well. So I'm going to give it a 7.
Yeah,
And
I
fair
get you.
enough.
I do get your argument. I could be persuaded. Yeah, it's not. They're not robbing us.
No.
I don't feel mugged for paying 25, but I do think if I'm paying 25, 30, 35 for Premier League games, and Arsenal, as I said, are one of the worst for ripping their fans off.
Yeah.
Paying 25 in the Championship, I still think, I'm sticking with 6. But
So I guess
you make a good point. You do make a good point.
I guess based on the fact that you say that 25 quid's a bit steep for an average Championship game, I guess if we ever do get to go and visit Leeds, you'll be giving them the first one of the series for that, I'm guessing. We won't reveal that price just yet, but many football fans will know.
Yeah.
And you can't get your refund when the game's not cancelled. So there we go.
Really acting like a Premier League club before they're even there.
I know. But anyway, on to the last one. We won't slag off Leeds too much in this episode. We are going to talk about character. And again, we've been quite lucky that we've had a few of the older grounds to start with. So I'm quite happy to give this a big one, but I'll let you go first.
Ooh, what do I go for? I think quite harsh on value for money. So I'll go for it. I'll be on this. I'll give it an 8.
You're going to give it an 8, are you? Fair enough. I'm going to match you with an 8. I thought it was a really nice ground. I loved the bit outside. Obviously, you got the statue as well in the area where the fans were, which was great.
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, 4 old-fashioned stands. You can see the town behind it. If that place had been full, I just wish it had been full because it would have been an absolutely cracking game. But either way, it's a brilliant ground. It's another one like St Andrews and Oakwell before. I'd be happy to go to again and watch football regularly. And I know the lockdown's going to make that easier to say, but I would quite happily go to any of them grounds again. So 8 for me. I've got no problems, and it's probably in my top 10, I would say, for character out of the grounds.
Wow. Okay, high praise. I do like, you make a good point again about the statue outside. I like it when clubs pay homage to their history and obviously their achievements. And I do like, I've got time for a statue outside a ground. Again, Arsenal hat on. Arsenal got 3 outside the Emirates. And it does, especially as the Emirates is a very new ground, it does add like a bit of, like, as if we're celebrating our past. And it's not all about the new ground in the new era. We're going to remember past glories. And I like the fact that Blackburn have got, what's he called? Jackie Walker? What's his name?
So Jack Walker, yeah.
Jack Walker, yeah. So yeah, that's a nice touch.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Blackburn, again, a ground we're very happy with. We've got no complaints, really, have we?
No, I think we've scored them quite well. I think we've been fair.
The only thing that's let it down is the atmosphere a bit, but we understand the reasons for that, and hopefully they will be able to be resolved for Blackburn's fans' sake in the future.
Yep. Here, well said. And yeah, as you said, I think a few times, I'd be happy to go back when it's fuller and fans are happier and hearing better voice and more content with the situation at their club. I think it would be a cracking ground to go to on a proper match day with a full stands. Yeah.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And again, we're back to agreeing after our slight differences with Birmingham last week.
We've made up again.
We have. I'm sure we'll fall out again next week, either way. But thank you very much for watching this one. We do appreciate it. If you have ever visited Ewood Park, let us know down in the comments. Maybe if you visited when it was a rocking Premier League ground, let us know what it was like so we can go back there in the future. Thank you to Tom for joining me again. Do appreciate it, mate.
Cheers.
If you did enjoy this episode, please put a thumbs up on it. Subscribe to the channel for new episodes from this series every Sunday at 4:30, and obviously all the FM20 content on the days in between. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.